The bells of King's Landing sang a cracked, uneasy melody at dawn. Across the sprawl of slate-tiled roofs and crooked chimneys, the fog that rose from the Blackwater settled like pale shrouds over the city's narrow veins. The old capital breathed a hush of dread, for even the gulls that ordinarily screamed over the Red Keep's towers wheeled on silent wings, as though afraid a single caw might draw the wrath of new masters. A spring wind rattled the shutters in Tommen Baratheon's bedchamber. Small king, smaller still beneath sheets too stiff with embroidery, he lay awake long before first light. His cat, Sir Pounce, brown battle-scarred, the sole knight he trusted, dozed on the windowsill. Outside, the garrison yard thrummed with boot beats and terse orders. Men drilling at dawn, though not the gold and crimson of the Kingsguard. Steel rang, but it was not Lannister steel. Tommen flinched at every clash. A fortnight ago, the High Septon's ragged faithful had patrolled only the Sept of Baelor. Now the seven-pointed star glimmered atop breastplates in every street, on every gatehouse. The faith militant drilled like soldiers of old iron buttons catching the first flush of sun. Tommen's tutor had told him of such things. Warriors' sons sworn to no lord but the gods. But tales were one thing. Hearing their boots stomp his courtyard stones was another. He rose, tugging a thick robe about pudgy shoulders, and padded toward the window. The city lay beneath him, restless as a wounded beast. In Flea Bottom, black smoke cookfires already curled between tenements, and beyond, the distant masts of Lyseni cogs bobbed in harbor haze. But Tommen watched only the yard, where Brother Reynard, broad as a bull and twice as brutal, barked prayers as commands, marching a column of zealots past Maester Pycelle's herb garden. 7, keep us righteous, 7, guide our blades. A knock startled him. Cereboros Kettleblack entered, helm tucked beneath the crook of one arm. The Kingsguard knight looked tired, mail still smeared with last night's grime, jowls shadowed by a sleepless stubble. "Your Grace," Boros murmured, voice rough as a cat's tongue. "The Queen Dowager requests your presence in the small council solar." Tommen swallowed. Mother is free. For the moment, the knight's eyes slipped aside. Better not tarry. A chill wormed beneath Tommen's robe. Rumor said the High Sparrow kept Cersei Lannister in a tower of the Sept, her ankles chained, her hair shorn. Yet somehow she had returned, if only to whisper counsel. He nodded, calling Sir Pounce to heel, and followed Boros into halls that smelled of polish and dread. Torchlight licked the stone as they descended. The Red Keep felt hollower than he remembered, corridors echoing with absent laughter. Where were the Tyrell guards? Where the bustling servants? Many had fled or gone missing. Some said the sparrows pressed them into penance, stripping silk for rough-spun. In the solar, sunlight spilled across a maple table littered with scrolls. Cersei stood at its head, plain wool gown cinched with borrowed rope, golden hair hacked at uneven lengths. The queen who once gleamed in cloth of gold looked a revenant of herself, yet her green eyes still blazed. Tommen. She gathered him close. Her embrace smelled of ash, and tears dampened his curls. My sweet boy. He wanted to ask why she wept, but Grand Maester Pycelle coughed behind them, and Lord Qyburn, pale as milk glass, shifted with uneasy grace. Lady Marguerite Tyrell, his queen, sat stiffly to one side, wrists red raw from invisible shackles, her grandmother absent, her guards disarmed. Only one other figure claimed the room. The High Sparrow himself. He stood beside the hearth, robe of unbleached wool hanging limp on a frame of wiry fervor. A silver crystal hung at his throat, catching sunbeams in starry flares. His smile was soft, almost fatherly. "Your Grace," he said, bowing his gray head. "I rejoice to see you safely here." Tommen looked at Mother, then Marguerite, unsure whom to trust. The council table bore no lion banners, no Tyrell rose. Instead, a seven-pointed star woven in coarse thread covered half the map. ... The sparrow lifted the cloth. "We meet today to ensure the realm's salvation. In times of chaos, the gods call us to courage. King Tommen, will you hear their voice?" Tommen licked dry lips. I always pray." "Then, You know their will. The sparrow's gaze drifted to the window, where sparrows chirped on the sill. Outside these walls, injustice festers. False lords finagle coin, women starve, babes cry for milk. The seven demand a shepherd. Are you that shepherd? He felt smaller than ever. I want what's best for the people. Piety suits a king. Cersei interrupted, voice tight. But a mother would speak plainly. My son remains sovereign. Any council must respect his crown. The sparrow folded his hands. Your crimes against the faith were grave. Lies, she hissed. Yet the mother is merciful. Kneel to confession, confess your sins, and the gods may yet smile upon House Lannister. Cersei's jaw trembled, fury warring with fear. Qyburn reached for her sleeve, a silent plea for caution. But she shook him off. Pycelle cleared his throat. Might we discuss more temporal matters? Scrolls fluttered beneath his palsied fingers. The crown's treasury bleeds silver. The Iron Bank demands payment. The grain ships from the Reach. Ships that cannot dock, Lady Margaery snapped, lifting shackled wrists. The faith blocks the harbor and confiscates cargo. Your pious blockade strangles the city. Nat Dunhorsti. Sin strangles the city, the sparrow answered. A purge of vice shall loosen the noose. Tommen's heart hammered. He imagined starving children, charred houses, mobs brandishing torches. But he also remembered riotous prayers outside the sept, small folk chanting for justice. The faith had given them hope. However harsh, he found his voice. Lord Sparrow, what must be done so my people eat? The old man's eyes shone. Abdicate in the name of the seven. Let the faith militant guide Westeros until righteousness is restored. Now or no eternal. Cersei slammed a fist on the table. Never. Margaery inhaled sharply. She looked to Tommen with pleading eyes. Ser Boros shifted, mail clinking. Your Grace, the King's Guard stands ready to defend you. But Qyburn spoke first. Unsettlingly calm. The faith controls every gate and tower. Resistance would mean blood on every cobblestone. Then blood it is, Cersei spat. The lion does not yield. The sparrow stepped forward. Violence begets only ashes. I offer peace. You shall keep your lives, your comforts, your titles. Titles granted by a usurper? Cersei scoffed. The sparrow ignored her. Tommen may retire to Casterly Rock as ward of the gods. He is 8, she snarled. There to study virtue, preparing for a righteous future. The realm will be governed by the Council of Septons and the warriors' sons. When the seven deem him worthy, he may wear a crown untainted by sin. Tommen felt walls closing on him. Retire? Study. He pictured endless prayers, stone floors, cold mornings before dawn. He pictured Ser Pounce taken away, mother weeping. He shook his head, tears stinging. Margaery leaned forward. Holiness, surely compromise exists. Let Tommen reign, guided by the star and the rose. The Reach will send grain, the crown will fund septs in every province, the faith may seat 2 counselors in perpetuity. A garden cannot bloom in poisoned soil. The sparrow whispered. Westeros gasped beneath the weight of sin. We must cleanse, not prune. The bells tolled again, louder, closer. Tommen realized they rang within the keep itself. Through the window, smoke coiled from the base of the Tower of the Hand. Shouts echoed across ramparts. Zealots flooding courtyards, disarming red cloaks, herding courtiers like lambs. Cersei's eyes flashed. They attack already. Brother Reynard burst into the solar, sword still dripping red. The outer wards are taken. The gold cloaks surrendered. What is your command, High Septon? The sparrow raised a gentle hand. Stand ready. The gods wait on no mortal quarrel. Ser Boros drew steel. Over my dead body. Reynard grinned, hefting his blade. Tommen trembled. A wrong word would spill blood. Before steel met steel, Pycelle collapsed, wheezing tight. Qyburn knelt to aid him, but the aged maester waved him off, voice a cracked whisper. Listen, the city. The small folk chant the sparrow's creed. If we fight everyone. Cersei's face twisted, then hardened. She knelt before Tommen, gripping his shoulders. You are my son, king of the realm. But kings must choose. Her voice broke. Choose me, or choose them. Margaery stepped forward, chain clinking against stone. Choose peace, beloved. His heartbeat thundered. In the yard below, Sir Pounce's ears flattened. Sensing chaos, Tommen felt 8 years crush him with a weight of 1,000. The sparrow waited, serene. Outside, voices swelled. A human tide roaring praises to the Seven. Tommen imagined the star blazing above every door. Kingsguard armor melted to coin for alms. Lannister lions stitched into rags. But he also imagined streets quiet of fear, bakeries open, children laughing, bells ringing in true joy. Could faith deliver such peace? He lifted his eyes to the sparrow. If I abdicate, will no one starve? Not by hunger born of tyranny. And my mother, my wife, they live. The mother's mercy shields all penitence. Cersei's nails bit his skin. No, no, my sweet. Tommen swallowed his tears. I abdicate. For the realm. Silence swallowed the room. A heartbeat stretched to breaking. Then the sparrow bowed, eyes wet with triumph. Reynard knelt, sword laid across upturned palms. Margaery gasped, tears slipping free, hope and horror entwined. Cersei's hands slid from Tommen's shoulders as though he had turned to smoke. The High Sparrow spoke, voice quivering like candlefire in a draught. By the will of the Seven, let it be done. Bells erupted again. First the sept, then every chapel, then copper pans in Flea Bottom. A wave of sound crashed over the city, chanting, cheering, praying. The faith militant had not needed to storm the throne. The throne had knelt to them. Reynard gestured. Zealots poured into the solar, binding the Kingsguard, relieving them of swords carved with lion heads. Cerberus fought like a cornered boar, but 5 sparrows dragged him down. Tommen stood numb, watching white cloaks drag through dust. Across the room, Cersei clung to Qyburn, her sobs ragged. Margaery wept, yet her eyes never left Tommen's, as though willing him strength. Outside, the Red Keep's great gates groaned open. Thousands flooded the courtyard, peasants and zealots arm in arm. Brother Reynard parted them, clearing a path toward the Sept of Baelor. They meant to carry a king into exile and crown a creed in his place. Tommen felt the world slide from beneath him. His crown, gold wrought with stag's antlers, glimmered on the table. Forgotten, the High Sparrow lifted it, weighing sin and gold in one frail hand. Without a word, he placed the crown atop a tapestry of the Seven, where it glinted like treasure upon an altar. Reynard approached Tommen, offering an open palm instead of chains. Come, child, the path is long, but the gods walk beside you. In that moment, Tommen realized he was alone. Mother could not save him. Margaery could not shield him. Sir Pounce could scratch only so deep. Yet a strange calm settled. Perhaps he would study scriptures, learn kindness, return one day wiser. Or perhaps the gods would forget him altogether. He took Reynard's hand. Together they stepped into the corridor, where thousands waited to glimpse the boy who traded a crown for a prayer. Light poured through shattered windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like blessings in the air. Somewhere above, ravens burst into flight, black wings slicing the dawn. And so the bells kept ringing, as King's Landing awoke to a new order. An order not of lions or roses, but of stars, steel, and silent sacrifice. The day the 7 Stars banner replaced the crimson Lannister flag above the Red Keep, King's Landing discovered the weight of true silence. No herald blew a trumpet, no drummer struck a cadence. Instead, the warriors' sons marched in unison through the Gate of the Gods, their bootfalls echoing like a distant clock that told the passing of an age. By mid-morning, the procession had swelled into a river of gray and iron. Barefoot poor fellows at the vanguard, star-stamped cudgels resting on their shoulders, warriors' sons behind them, mail hauberks gleaming with newly etched runes, long spears angled toward the sky. Where Lannister guards once barred the streets, Only sandaled zealots now stood, offering bread, water, and passages from the seven-pointed star to wide-eyed smallfolk who could not decide whether to kneel or flee. Tommen Baratheon walked at the center of that river, hands folded, head bowed beneath a plain woolen cowl. Dawn's chill grazed his cheeks, making them sting. He had marched before, royal tours past cheering crowds, hand in hand with Marguerite, while roses rained from balconies, but never as a captive to his own conscience. At each corner, bells chimed, and each note felt like a step farther from the boy he had been. He breathed the scent of candle wax and dust, and told himself that giving up a crown to feed the hungry was noble, even brave. Yet he could not stop glancing back to the Red Keep's distant towers, wondering if Mother watched from some secret slit, fury blazing in jade-green eyes. Brother Reynard guided him with a gentle hand against his shoulder. "The path is steep only at its beginning, lad," the zealot murmured, voice low enough to hide from the crowd. "Soon you will feel lighter." Tommen nodded but said nothing. Words felt treasonous to either side of his breaking heart. 7 streets converged on the hill of Baelor, where the sept's domes shone like 7 half-moons in the hard spring light. Pilgrims clogged the marble steps, kneeling as Tommen climbed. Poor fellows parted the crowd with ropes threaded through iron rings. No push or shove, only murmured blessings. And each kneeler extended a hand to graze the hem of Tommen's robe. "Bless you, small king," a crone rasped, pressing a polished seedstone bead into his palm. "May the Mother keep you safe." He wanted to thank her, but Brother Reynard's hand steered him onward. At the top of the steps waited the High Sparrow, robed in the same undyed wool he had always worn, yet transfigured now by the aura of undisputed power. With him stood a septon bearing a staff of weeping weirwood, and a scribe with parchment curled like a snake. Candles fluttered in sconces, incense drifted upward in translucent ribbons that wound around marble columns carved with reliefs of each god. The sparrow inclined his head. "Welcome home, child of the 7. Tommen knelt. Reynard helped him remove the golden stag-antlered crown from a velvet pouch, only moments ago retrieved from the council solar. The metal felt heavier than when it had graced his brow, as though the very gold had absorbed every choice he had abandoned. He placed it on the smooth stone tiles and stepped back. The sparrow raised both hands. "Bear witness, faithful souls. Tommen Baratheon lays aside worldly station in deference to godly grace. In their wisdom, the 7 accept his promise of repentance." A roar of amen surged through the nave, echoing off mosaicked walls, followed by a hush so complete that one could hear wax drip onto brass. The scribe unrolled the vellum, and quill trembling, began to record in red ink the abdication decree. Tommen's throat tightened. He stared at the crown, and for a heartbeat, its antlers seemed to tremble, as though alive in protest. Then, Brother Reynard guided him toward a side aisle, down a flight of stairs into the crypts beneath the sept. Torchlight painted the passageway copper and black. Candles flickered within small alcoves, each niche holding statues of long-forgotten septons. Reynard led him to a modest cell, a straw pallet, a rough-spun blanket, a chipped clay basin with water. No bars, only a wooden door that shut with a click more final than any portcullis. "That you might contemplate," Reynard said. 3 vigils of silence, then we shall speak of vows. He lit a tallow candle in an iron holder and set a loaf of brown bread on a stool. At the threshold he paused. "Know that every prayer uttered above passes through this stone to your ears. Let their faith warm you, lad." The door closed. Tommen sank onto the pallet, crownless, friendless, save Sir Pounce, hidden beneath his robe, and now wriggling free to curl in his lap. He stroked the cat with trembling fingers and listened to the echo of chanting above, a muffled thunder that made the stone tremble like a resting dragon's back. He wondered if Joffrey had felt fear at all before dying. He wondered if Robb Stark's heart had thundered so hard before his blood met the twins' floor. He wondered if being king had ever been anything other than a slow drowning. In that darkness, 3 days blurred into one long dream. Hunger that felt like penance, sleeplessness that felt like prophecy, a constant hum of prayer that began to etch itself into the cadence of his heartbeat. Twice a day, a silent novice brought water and bread. Sir Pounce hunted mice between the flagstones, then delivered the bodies to Tommen as though gifting silver trout. Tommen buried each in a corner, whispering apologies for the sin of living off the labor of a beast. On the morning of the fourth day, the door creaked open, and the High Sparrow himself stepped in. "Rise, child," he said, unbinding a length of twine from around his wrist. "The first flower of humility has opened. It is time to water it with service." Tommen tugged his robe straight, feeling clumsy and disheveled. The sparrow handed him a plain burlap sack and a wooden ladle. "Come, the poor at the soup yard wait." They climbed to the surface. A brisk wind scoured the plaza. Gulls whirled overhead. Shafts of sunlight lanced between clouds as though the sky itself were a cracked dome. Hundreds of beggars lined rough benches outside the sept. Cauldrons simmered in makeshift hearths. Their steam scented faintly of leeks and marrow-bone. Tommen dipped the ladle, filled bowls, passed them down the line. Some beggars recognized him. Others only saw a robed boy with gentle eyes and thanked him with toothless smiles. One little girl thrust a dandelion stem behind his ear. "You pour so neat," she lisped. "You must be an angel." That night, exhaustion claimed him before guilt could. He collapsed into straw and dreamed of lions with broken teeth, scratching at the gates while 7 stars burned overhead. Elsewhere in the city, Cersei Lannister did not sleep. Confined to Maegor's holdfast, she paced a chamber stripped of draperies and wine. With Qyburn her only companion, the maester no longer wore stolen chain links, but in the dim candlelight his smile gleamed like a waterworm's in darkness. "Your Grace," he murmured. "Lord Orain Waters' new galleys linger in the Blackwater, sails furled. The faith has no warships, only prayers. One torch from the parapets and burn my son with them." Cersei snapped, eyes blazing. She flung aside a tapestry depicting King Aegon's coronation, revealing rough stone. "If Tommen dies, the realm will tear itself apart. Not if a proper monarch remains." Qyburn's shadow stretched long. "Young Tommen is but one lion cub. You, however, are the lioness." She halted, breathing hard. "I would mount the Iron Throne myself if that could save him." "Then the path is clear. A mother regent may rule until her child is restored, or until the realm accepts her permanence." Cersei considered the notion, eyes shifting to the silent bulk standing in the far corner. Sir Robert Strong, the mute giant encased in white armor. Beneath his helm, no breath hissed, yet he moved when she willed it, as though bound to her heartbeat. An arrow shaft still protruded from his left pauldron, one of the many he had collected while carving a path through fleeing sparrows during her March of Atonement. Qyburn had warned not to remove it, lest rot set in, but the monster seemed indifferent to pain. "Robert will cut the sparrow apart," she murmured. "But the faith militant multiplies like vermin. One blow will not break them. Then strike at their flock." Qyburn's voice softened. "I have tinctures, powders, charms. A cough in the soup yard can become a plague before the city wakes." Cersei's stomach twisted. Poisoned children begging for broth? Even Tywin Lannister would balk. War spares no innocence. Qyburn's eyes gleamed. "It merely dissects the anatomy of power." She paced to the window. The city below glimmered with candlelight, no longer the red glow of taverns, but the subdued flicker of vigil lamps. Brothels had shuttered their doors under edicts of chastity. Wine sinks now poured water infused with holy herbs. The Lion's Gate stood unmanned, its portcullis raised to allow throngs of pilgrims. Cersei saw her power bleed with every pennant of 7-pointed stars. "Send ravens to Lord Kevin," she said finally. "Call him home to serve as hand. Summon any Lannister host still loyal. Your uncle hesitated to return even before," Qyburn cautioned. "Now, with the faith ascendant, he will come if he loves our blood." Her lip curled. "And if he will not, another must." She turned to Robert Strong. "Ready your sword. Before dawn, you and I ride for the sept." Qyburn pressed 2 fingers to his lipless mouth in thought, then nodded slowly. I will prepare your champion, but mark me. A beast unleashed cannot be easily chained. If he kills the High Sparrow in sight of thousands, the mob will rise. Neberwanti. And they will die, she said, eyes like emerald flame. Let them feel the claws of the lion. Beyond the city walls, the golden fields of the Reach swayed under morning sun, but Lady Olenna Tyrell tasted only ash. Her litter jostled along the Roserad, a column of wagons behind her loaded with grain, salted beef, and barrels of cider. She had intended to break the Faith's blockade by generosity, starving a city won no crowns. Yet her scouts returned with grim tidings. The Faith Militant had seized the Roserad Junction, conscripting small folk to unload cargo at makeshift granaries stamped with the 7-pointed star. What the Tyrells intended as relief became tribute to the Sparrow's new order. Inside her litter, Olenna tapped the ruby head of her cane against the wicker wall. The gods are thieves dressed in rags, she muttered. She turned to her grandson, Sir Loras, seated opposite. His face, once radiant as a summer dawn, was pallid, scarred by months of Faith dungeons. Yet his blue eyes gleamed with renewed fire. Give me sword and horse, Loras said. I'll cut a path to Margaery. Foolish boy. One sword against a city of zealots? Better one righteous sword than 10,000 flower pickers, grandmother. She sighed. The Reach will rally, once Randall Tarley agrees to lead. But the Crown's coin financed his new birthing cradle for grand ambitions. We dangled knighthoods, castles, wardships, and still he hesitates. These vultures smell change and wait to see which corpse fattens first. Then the Tyrells must choose, Loras said. Bend knee to the Sparrow or reclaim the city with steel. Olenna's gaze sharpened. Steel it is, but we will not charge blind. We starve them from within first. The Sparrow feeds thousands with our grain. Cut the supply and his flock will scatter. Loras frowned. And those thousands? We aim for weakness, not innocence. The city has cellars full of barley. A week without fresh bread will not kill them. He leaned back. Silent acknowledgement. Olenna opened a ledger, scribbled notes. Bribes to Tarley, promises to Rowan and Fossaway, secret messages to the Stormlands, where young Edric Storm now roused an army under a black stag banner. Power abhorred a vacuum. If she moved fast, the Tyrell rose would bloom where lions and sparrows left naught but thorns. Grandmother, Loras said suddenly, voice soft. If we fail, Margaery will die. For once, the Queen of Thorns had no retort. She closed her ledger and reached for his hand. Then we will not fail. On the King's Road's northern stretch, Jaime Lannister rode alone. A gold cloak wrapped about his shoulders despite the spring warmth. His right hand, gloved in leather, flexed anxiously at the reins. His left, a polished lump of gilded steel, lay useless across his thigh. Even before a raven from Qyburn reached him at River Run, rumors had galloped faster than any bird. The Faith Militant storming the Red Keep, Tommen's abdication, a new theocracy sprouting in King's Landing. Yet the parchment in his saddlebag cut deeper than rumor. The only words Cersei had penned since her captivity. I stand at the heart of the blaze. Will you bring rain or burn beside me? No signature. She needed none. Jaime urged honor, a mottled gray destrier, over a low ridge. In the valley beyond, he spotted plumes of campfire smoke, Lannister banners ringing a small stone sceptre. Ser Adam Marbrand waited there with 600 men, half-wearied veterans, half-farm lads conscripted on the promise of a lion's meal a day. Jaime slowed, jaw clenched. 600 might hold a pass, might harry a flank. Against the Faith's thousands perched inside the city? Folly. He dismounted at the camp's edge. Ser Adam strode to meet him, bowing. My Lord Commander, we expected more time. Time evaporates when crowns melt in septs, Jaime said. Stripping his gloves, he glanced at the men sharpening spears, patching mail, mending tents made of wagon canvas. Any ravens from Casterly Rock? None. Lord Kevin still musters the Rock's levies. Reports say the sparrows preaching lands as far west as Fair Isle. Some towns have thrown down the lion banner. Nee. Jaime's lip curled. So my family fractures while a barefoot fanatic plays king. Sir Adam dropped his voice. Yet, the fanatic commands hearts. These zealots believe the gods ride with them. The gods have poor taste in saddles. Jaime scanned the septry. Modest walls, a small bell tower. On the parapet, warriors' sons' banners fluttered beside the seven-pointed star. You took prisoners? A dozen novitiates. We hoped for exchange value. Exchange for what? Tommen's freedom? He's a willing novice now. He raked golden hair from his eyes. No, we ride at dusk. We travel light, slip through the mudgate before dawn. I'll parley with the High Sparrow. And if he refuses, Jaime's knuckles whitened on his sword hilt. Then I offer my head. A kingslayer's death might buy my son's life. Sir Adam frowned. Your head serves better upon shoulders. If the gods wish it, they can pluck it off themselves. Jaime spurred toward the septry's well, scooped water into his palms, splashed his face. River runs river still rang in his ears. The memory of Edmure Tully's tearful surrender, the bitter clench of honor sacrificed for expedience. Here again, honor and expedience wrestled. Which would Tommen remember of his father, the knight who yielded, or the knight who bled for him? In the well's reflection, Jaime saw a man with gray beginning at his temples, green eyes lined by regret. The golden surcoat and the glittering sword concealed only so much frailty. He straightened. One day at a time, 1 mile at a time, a river of zealots flowed south. He would wade against its current, or drown trying. Inside the Red Keep's dungeons, Marguerite Tyrell knelt in damp straw. Prayer whispered through cracked lips. 2 warriors' sons stood guard outside the iron-barred door. Halberds crossed. A single torch offered flickering light, throwing her shadow across cold stone. She had spent 3 nights in this cell while interrogators pressed her to list every sin: vanity, larceny, fornication. Her confessions, though embellished for survival, never satisfied. They asked how many times she bedded Tommen. She swore none. They asked if she worshipped the mother, or only the rose. She swore devotion to both. They asked if she plotted against the gods. She swore she plotted only to feed the hungry. Yet each answer only invited more questions. Each lash of the flail spiraled deeper into suspicion. The faith sought not truth but submission. As she prayed, footsteps approached. The guards uncrossed halberds, swinging the door open to admit Septa Mole, a bony wisp of a woman in gray, all angles and hollow eyes. She carried a black ledger. Rise, Mole commanded. The High Septon summons you. Marguerite's heart thudded. She smoothed her ragged gown and followed. Up torchlit stairs they climbed, into chambers once occupied by Kingsguard captains. Moel ushered her into a small audience hall, where the sparrow waited at a low table. Parchment spread before him, candles guttering. Lady Marguerite, he said, voice soft. We have spoken much of sin. Let us speak now of redemption. He gestured to a cushion. She sat, back straight, despite aching ribs. What must I do? Take vows as a silent sister, he replied, sliding a vellum sheet toward her. Abandon claim to any throne. Pledge your dowry to the faith. Serve the poor in anonymity. Marguerite swallowed. If I refuse, then we resume inquiry. There is always more to confess. She steadied her breathing. A silent sister. Buried behind a veil, her beauty wasted, her voice forever locked away. Roses trimmed to thorns. Yet if she accepted, Tommen remained alive. Loras might be spared. Her family's army perhaps would stand down, saving countless lives. She closed her eyes. Cages came in many guises. One could choose the bars, or have them chosen. I agree, she whispered. Moel unfurled a roll of wool. Then let us shave the hair that tempts men's thoughts. A single tear slid down Marguerite's cheek as scissors whispered through auburn locks, each snip a petal torn from a bloom, yet to open. When it was done, Moel pressed ink to parchment, guiding Marguerite's trembling hand across the vow. The sparrow sprinkled ash over the fresh signature. "The mother is merciful," he murmured. "Walk with her, child." Marguerite bowed her head. Somewhere beyond stone walls, bells rang again, but this time they sounded like chains. Night-draped kings landing in a velvet of uncertain stars. In Flea Bottom, cooking fires burned low, though drinkers still huddled outside ex-brothels, nursing watered wine and sharing rumors. One such drinker, a bald man with rat-like eyes, leaned close to a hooded companion. "They say the Queen Mother plots to burn the sept," he whispered. "Wildfire caches beneath. Left from Eris's day. One spark and foom." The hooded figure said nothing, only sipped ale. Rat Eyes chuckled. But the sparrow spies heard. "They dig trenches, flood the vaults with river water. No green flame for lions tonight. Neither nor." He spat into the gutter and shuffled off. The hooded man rose, slipping through alleyways until he reached a forgotten postern under the dragon pit's crumbling walls. He removed his hood, revealing Varys the spider, head shaven to a shine. From a satchel he drew a scroll, lit a taper, and touched flame to wax seal. A puff of smoke, a hiss, and parchment turned to embers that spiraled skyward, consumed before any crow might snatch it. He smiled sadly. "Chaos is not a pit," he murmured, echoing an old rival. "But neither is order a ladder. Both are snares, and the realm hangs in them." Mentor testam. He turned, vanishing into shadows, another whisper lost in the city of faith. Dawn bled slowly into the sky as Cersei Lannister emerged from Maegor's holdfast on horseback, flanked by Robert Strong and a dozen red-cloaked loyalists. She wore black mail over silk, the color of dried blood, a gorget embossed with a roaring lioness. Her hair, hacked short by Septa's shears, stuck out in golden tufts beneath a steel half-helm. She looked a she-wolf stripped of dignity, baring teeth grown sharper for it. They clattered across the courtyard to the Red Keep's eastern gate, where Brother Gendel, a meek scribe before joining the poor fellows, now commanded the watch. He stepped forward. "The gates stay shut till sunrise, my lady." Cersei's lips curved. "Then open them at once, or sunrise will greet you headless." Gendel swallowed. He eyed Robert Strong, 8 feet of gilded steel, eyes hidden behind slits, pounding breath whispering through a vent shaped like a skull's grin. Even the Faith's bravest hesitated before that mountain. Keys rattled. Portcullis groaned upward. Cersei spurred ahead, her retinue fanning out. They galloped down Aegon's high hill, hooves striking sparks off cobble. A horn sounded from the Red Keep, then another. Lots scrambled from doorways, brandishing spears. Yet, Cersei's party thundered past before a barricade could form, streaming across the market square and onto the Street of the Sisters. The night wind slammed into her face, hot and sharp with soot. But she felt alive, as though every lash of humiliation had crystallized into unbreakable resolve. Ahead, the Sept of Baelor loomed, its 7 towers curving skyward. Torches lined the steps, burning low. A squad of warriors' sons stood at the base, 20 men with star-etched shields. Cersei did not slow. Her horse screamed as she drove heels into its flanks. The squad braced spears. At the last moment, Robert Strong surged forward, shield bashing 2 men aside. Spears clanged off his armor, splintering. He swung a greatsword that glimmered green in torchlight. Steel bit flesh. Zealots toppled. Cersei wheeled to the steps. "Hold the entrance." She barked to her knights, dismounting. Robert Strong led, smashing through the oak doors with a single kick. Wood exploded inward. The vestibule beyond filled with startled novitiates. They scattered as the giant strode forward, trailing blood. Cersei followed, boots skidding on marble slick with torch soot. Voices rose deeper inside. Alarm, prayer, screams. She aimed for the main sept, but veered left toward the burial crypts, recalling rumors of the sparrow's midnight meditations. Incense thickened the air. She rounded a corner and found the high sparrow kneeling before a stone altar carved with scenes of the smith forging chains. Alone. Unarmed. "So the lioness hunts," he said without turning. "Pray your smith-tempered courage," Cersei snarled. "You will need it in hell." Robert Strong strode forward, sword raised. But the sparrow lifted a hand. "Halt, Sir Giant. Would you strike a man at prayer?" The giant paused. Cersei's eyes widened. No man commanded Robert Strong. Yet the monster froze, as though invisible chains bound him. The sparrow stood, turning slowly. In his hand, he held nothing more menacing than a wooden rosary. Yet candlelight flickered oddly against his shadow. Split, then split again, until 7 silhouettes rippled behind him, each nimbus crowned. "Steel breaks," the sparrow said softly. "Faith bends, but endures." Cersei felt the ground in her chest quake. Robert Strong raised his sword once more, but the blade shook. A tremor spread through his armor. The arrow lodged in his pauldron rattled like a lodged bone. Cersei saw green liquid ooze from beneath his gorget, thick, reeking of death. She realized Qyburn's magic unspooled, a thread cut. The giant staggered. "Monster of alchemy," the sparrow intoned. "A natural life may flourish in shadows, but stands naked in the mother's light." Robert Strong fell to one knee, sword dropping with a clang. His helm tipped, revealing beneath not a face, but a sunken void of stitched skin and black ichor. He pitched forward, the echo of his fall like a cracked bell. Cersei stumbled back. "No, rise, Sir Robert, rise." The sparrow's eyes were pools of candle gold. "You cannot command what never truly lived." He stepped closer, voice a whisper that filled the crypt. "Lay down your hate, Cersei of House Lannister. Confess, and the 7 may yet spare your soul." "Dan, Diwo, et al." She drew a dagger, Valyrian steel, gift from Tywin. "Spare your lies. You want blood? Here is mine." She slashed at him, but the blade met only air. He was there, then beside her, then behind. An impossible shifting, like 7 men sharing one body. "Do you see, child?" His voice surrounded her. "Power is illusion wrought by fear. Let go." "Never," she hissed. The dagger slipped from numb fingers. Her legs buckled. Cold stone greeted her knees. For the first time, tears burned not with rage, but hollow dread. She felt suddenly a child again, locked in a windowless room at Casterly Rock for disobeying her father, alone with darkness and sobs that shook her body. The sparrow's palm alighted on her head, gentle as falling ash. "Confess." "I..." Her voice broke. She saw Jaime's smile, now distant, Tommen's laugh, now imprisoned. Joffrey's corpse, eyes staring, Myrcella's tomb, lips pale as winter roses. She heard bells tolling as wildfire devoured pyres of faith. She saw her kingdom, ashes in her fist. I. But the words would not come. Pride welded her jaw. The sparrow sighed, sorrowful. Then rise as adversary, not penitent. Footsteps approached, scores of them. Warriors' sons flooded the corridor, leveling pikes. They seized her, binding wrists. The sparrow drew back. "Hold her until dawn. We will convene the Council of Absolution." Cersei lifted her chin, face streaked by tears she refused to wipe. "Do you think chains frighten me? I will watch you burn from every corner of hell." The sparrow's gaze softened, almost pitying. The father judges, the mother forgives, the crone enlightens. But the stranger waits for those who cling to pride. They dragged her away. Robert Strong's corpse leaked black ichor across marble. Candles sputtered in oily fumes. Somewhere above, the sept bells began anew. Slow, mournful peals that rolled across the city, a dirge for endings not yet understood. In Tommen's cell, a dream shattered. He woke drenched in cold sweat, Sir Pounce kneading his chest. Bells tolled, a sound different, heavy. He strained to understand, then felt a tremor pass through stone as though giants fought overhead. A youth's panicked voice cried down the corridor. "The Queen Mother's captured. The silent giant is dead." "Nander." Tommen sprang up, heart hammering. He pressed an ear to the door. Footsteps thundered past, voices raised in alarm. Through the narrow grate, he glimpsed a novice sprinting. "What's happening?" Tommen called. No answer came. He crouched, hugging Sir Pounce. Everything he sacrificed, the crown, the pride, meant to spare bloodshed, yet blood still flowed. He felt the old helplessness of a boy cowering behind his brother's shadow. Perhaps, he thought, abdication was not enough. Perhaps a king must remain king to save his people, even if that people was ruled by faith. He breathed deep, plan forming amid fear. When the novice returned hours later with bread, Tommen asked softly, "Brother, do you believe mercy stronger than justice?" The novice, a boy no older than Tommen, hesitated. "Yes, I think so." Tommen nodded. "Then help me. The city needs mercy tonight, or dawn will break over corpses." The boy's eyes widened. "What can I do?" "Take me to the High Sparrow. Tell him I seek to end the blood. He is in council. Then I'll wait at the door until his council ends." The novice trembled, but something in Tommen's quiet urgency convinced him. He set down the tray, pressed finger to lips. "Meet me after the next bell." He stepped away. Tommen's pulse steadied. Queens and lions played their games, but a boy could still try. He looked to Sir Pounce. "For the realm," he whispered. The cat yawned. Jaime Lannister's vanguard reached the mud gate as dawn's first haze painted the Blackwater silver gray. Mist clung to river piers, muffling the lapping of tide. The gate tower loomed, its drawbridge lowered, an omen or a trap. Jaime ordered torches quenched, banners furled. 200 horsemen slunk behind him under a cloak of silence. At the gatehouse, a single poor fellow leaned on a pike, nodding half asleep. Jaime eased honor forward. "Open passage to the Red Keep," he said softly. The fellow squinted. "Orders close the gate at dusk. Dawn breaks. Time for new orders." Jaime slipped a silver stag into the man's palm, then another, and another, until a small fortune glittered. The fellow's eyes widened. "Gods bless your charity." He waved them through. Jaime exhaled. So far, coin outmatched creed. His men rode into narrow streets, hooves hushed by mud. The city still dozed, unaware of the tension coiling around its heart. At the street of steel, a baker opened shutters, yawning, then froze at the sight of armed riders. Jaime led them toward the hill of Baelor, avoiding market squares where zealots gathered for dawn prayers. Halfway up, horns blared, faith sentries spotting intruders. Bells clanged. Warriors' sons poured from byways. Jaime signaled left. His column split, galloping in loops that kicked dust clouds to obscure numbers. Spears glinted. Arrows hissed. A shaft clanged off Jaime's breastplate. He pressed on, past the shops of the Street of Sisters, past shuttered inns. His goal, the silent sept courtyard, where he might demand parley. Steel met steel. Sir Adam's flank crashed into a zealot shield wall, scattering men. Jaime's right hand drew sword. Old habit. Then cursed the stump. He guided honor instead, knocking zealots aside with the gilt fist. Around him, swords rang, horses shrieked. He felt both alive and condemned. A sudden hush swept the street. A single thunderclap of soundless shock. The combatants froze. Jaime turned and felt his heart leap. Atop the sept steps stood the High Sparrow, flanked by torchbearers. Beside him, dressed in a novice's robe, stood Tommen Baratheon. A hush rippled outward like a dropped stone. Swords lowered, heads craned. Bells ceased. In the gray dawn, the boy king raised a hand. "Stop!" Tommen's voice cracked yet carried. "No more blood in the god's name." Jaime stared, breathing ragged. His son looked thinner, eyes ringed with fatigue, but determination burned. The sparrow lifted his arms. "Lay down on arms both sides. Hear the king who chose mercy." Tommen stepped forward, voice strengthening. "I surrendered my crown for peace, yet war follows me. If killing must continue, spill my blood first. Let the gods judge." A collective gasp. All. Warriors' sons lowered spears. Jaime felt tears sting. He slipped from honor, pushing through zealots to the steps. Tommen met his eyes. A plea and apology fused. Jaime knelt. "Forgive me, my son." "Father," Tommen whispered, voice breaking. Jaime pulled him into an embrace. The sparrow watched, expression unreadable. Then the queen's scream rent the morning. From an alley emerged Cersei, hair wild, wrists bruised, flanked by shackled guards. She saw Jaime holding Tommen and collapsed to her knees. Sobs torn from her chest. "My boy. My sweet boy." Tommen freed himself, ran to her, knelt. "Mother, please, no more fighting. We can build peace, all of us." Cersei clutched his face. "They will kill you," she wept. "They will chain you until nothing remains." "No." He placed her hand over his heart. "I carry the seven within. If faith guides me, I need no chains." The sparrow descended a step. "Let mercy be the hour's gospel. Release the Queen Mother to her son's custody. Let the Kingslayer depart with his men. The faith shall govern until the realm is steadied, but the blood of kin shall not stain these stones." Mebebrano. Warriors' sons exchanged glances. Some doubtful, others relieved. Jaime rose, eyes rimmed red. He looked to Cersei. "Come, we leave this place." But she shook her head, gaze drifting to Robert Strong's absent heft. "I have debts only fire can pay." Tommen squeezed her hand. "There is no fire in mercy." His voice trembled yet persisted. "Come home, mother." "Oh, no." The word cracked her armor. Tears glimmered on cracked lips. At last, she nodded, slow, grudging. Jaime exhaled. Together, they descended the steps, flanked by Tommen and 100 warriors who moments before had bled one another. Bells began again, but this time as soft as a lullaby. In the tunnels beneath the Guildhall of Alchemists, green wildfire bubbled in black iron vats. Emiros, a journeyman pyromancer, watched thin rivulets of green flame slither in narrow channels. At his feet lay a sealed cask labeled Dragonfire #4. Quibern's coin had purchased transport to the Septi's vaults, but rumors said the Sparrow's men now flooded those vaults with river water. Emiros scowled, running soot-blackened fingers along a copper pipe. Plans unraveled like faulty wick. He suspected the city might yet burn, though not as he wished. Fires needed only air and spark, men provided both. He turned a brass valve and a low hiss filled the tunnel. Distant bells echoed. Emiros smiled thinly. Wherever faith, ambition, and grief met, wildfire found its place. He extinguished his lantern and vanished into shadows, leaving the vats to burble their dangerous song. Sunrise spread pink and gold over King's Landing, but its warmth felt tentative, as though uncertain of a welcome. On the hill of Baelor, Tommen Baratheon led his mother and father toward the Red Keep. Warriors' sons formed an honor guard in silence. Lannister knights trailed behind. Banners furled. The city held its breath, watching 3 lions walk beneath a sky brightening with fragile hope. Tommen paused at the top of the Rivergate Bridge and turned. Pilgrims and small folk clogged the streets, their faces upturned like seedlings seeking dawn. He raised both arms. "People of King's Landing," he called, "I stand as servant to realm and gods. I pledge to labor beside the faith, to trust their counsel, to feed the hungry and hear the helpless. Yet I shall also reclaim my crown, when deeds not words prove me worthy." A vast murmur rolled across rooftops. Doubt, belief, relief. The sparrow watched from the sept steps, staff in hand, expression solemn. Tommen continued, "Until that day, let there be no more swords drawn in the city. May the 7 guide us, and may we, in turn, guide one another." He lowered his arms. Silence lingered. Then a single voice cried, "Bless the boy king." Another echoed, "Mercy for all." Soon 1,000 voices wove into a rising psalm. Tommen swallowed, cheeks flushing. He clasped his parents' hands, and together they entered the Red Keep, uncertain of tomorrow, but alive to greet it. In a distant rookery high above the Westerlands, a raven took flight bearing a message stamped with a golden rose. It winged east over green hills and river valleys, through dawn mists toward the capital. Within days, Ravens would cross from Dorne, from the Vale, from Dragonstone, each carrying words shaped by new realities. Alliances would form, break, and reform under different banners. The Seven Kingdoms had witnessed the toppling of a boy king by his own surrender, and the rise of faith to temporal rule. But the Game of Thrones did not end. It shifted, as rivers shift when blocked, seeking new channels to the sea. And far beneath the sept of Baelor, where torchlight could not reach, wildfire dripped in forgotten tunnels, glowing like liquid emeralds. Should any spark find that hanging sword of Damocles, neither faith nor crown would matter, only ashes. Yet for this brief morning, the bells chimed a gentler note, and King's Landing stirred beneath their music, hopeful, wary, and unknowingly poised on the knife edge separating redemption from ruin. In Ka, a frail sunrise clung to the capital for all of one trembling hour before gray clouds rolled in off the Blackwater, draping King's Landing in a mantle of pewter gloom. The city seemed to hold its breath, uncertain whether the fragile peace wrought on the hill of Baelor would hold longer than the faint blush of dawn. Along the street of steel, armorers hammered quietly, tempering blades without the boisterous banter that once rang from their forges. Bakers kneaded dough in silence, acutely aware of dwindling flour sacks. Beggars huddled in archways, murmuring prayers through cracked lips that bled in the cold. Inside the Red Keep, life took on the slow rhythm of convalescence. Curtains were drawn back to air out chambers that reeked of smoke and spilled oil, and servants moved like cautious ghosts, each footfall measured. In the Queen's apartments, once resplendent with Lannister reds and golds, Cersei sat at a modest cedar writing desk. Her wrists bore raw rings where faith chains had bitten, and her hair, still raggedly shorn, framed a face pale as new parchment. She watched ink seep into paper, forming loops and slashes of a letter that would travel west to Casterly Rock. Her hand shook only once. She steadied it by summoning the memory of Tywin's scorn for weakness. "Uncle," she wrote, "the faith has clipped the lion's claws, but not its fangs. Bring every sword the rock can muster. The sparrow's peace reeks of carrion." She paused, listening to the hush beyond her chamber door. Tommen had visited at first light, dressed in the plain beige of a novice. He kissed her cheek, smelled of candle smoke and old parchment, and spoke of rebuilding the realm upon pillars of compassion. His innocence felt like salt on an open wound. She saw the broken giant Robert strong on the crypt floor every time she blinked, smelled the rot still beneath her nails. Compassion, she thought, was a cage as cruel as any iron shackle. In a corner, Qyburn stood by a brazier, grinding dried belladonna into powder. "Your Grace," he said softly, "if Lord Kevin delays, we must turn to other resources." Cersei did not look up. "You speak of poison. Poison of body, poison of mind." He lifted a clay vial. "A grain of this in broth could quiet a zealot forever, or sell hallucinations that have him proclaiming false visions. The mob's faith in him would wither." "In." Cersei's quill hovered. "Bring every sword." She dipped it again. "The mob's faith is a wildfire in dry grass. One spark suffices to ignite, another to consume. But misjudge the wind," she whispered, "and it sweeps the blaze upon you." Qyburn smiled thinly. "I will gauge the wind, my queen." She sealed the letter, pressing wax with her lion seal, though the stamp's edges had dulled. Qyburn departed to summon a raven. Cersei rose, pacing to the window. Below, the godswood's leafless branches scratched against a stone wall. She touched her throat where a collar of bruises blossomed beneath silk. No matter how she tried, she could not swallow the taste of incense that lingered from the crypt. Jaime Lannister's chambers were 3 corridors distant, sparse and shadowed. He sat on a stool by the hearth, left forearm resting across steel fingers atop his lap. Tommen perched at the opposite end of the table, a stack of vellum sheets before him, each filled with careful, cramped script. His cheeks were smudged with ash. Penance luncheon among the laundresses in Flea Bottom. He had served soup again, then helped wash foul linens of plague victims. The scent clung to him. "I must memorize the 7-pointed star," he said. voice wavering between duty and fatigue. Brother Reynard says knowledge is the first blade of the righteous. Jaime turned a bronze goblet in his right hand, watching firelight ripple across its surface. Reynard knows blades, lad. He swung enough of them. Tommen's eyes searched his father's. Is he wrong? About learning? No. About righteousness? Jaime shrugged. A sword's sharp on both edges. It cares nothing for the hand that wields it. Tommen frowned and looked down at the text. I thought the gods guided hands. Perhaps. Or perhaps men hear what they want. When I was your age, I dreamed of knighthood, justice, honor. Then truth bled those dreams into mud. He flexed the golden prosthetic, joints creaking. Now I protect who I can. Tommen's fingers drifted to a passage he had underlined. Mercy is strength, for only the strong may spare. If I'm merciful and the sparrow is just, we can heal the realm. Jaime leaned forward. Justice without mercy is a wheel of knives. Mercy without strength is a lute without strings. Pleasant to see, useless to hear. You need both. A knock sounded. Sir Adam Marbrand entered, armor dented from yesterday's skirmish. Lord Commander, the High Septon requests audience in the Hall of Lamps. He asks that the king attend. Tommen sighed, closing his parchment. Jaime rose, laying a hand on his son's shoulder. Steel your heart, but keep it soft enough to feel. That is a king's paradox. They walked together, Jaime's cloak brushing Tommen's novice robe. In the Hall of Lamps, an airy chamber lined with stained glass, High Sparrow awaited beside a low table set with bread, water, and a single, unlit lamp. 7 windows spilled muted light across a mosaic floor depicting the father's scales. Your Grace, he greeted, bowing first to Tommen, then inclining his head to Jaime. And Lord Commander, we gathered to discuss the small folks' feast. Tommen blinked. A feast? The sparrow gestured. Harlots have fled, drink is scarce, and curfew stifles laughter. Joy must not die with sin. On the 7th day after new moon, we propose a festival of redemption. Music in the streets, free bread, simple ale, sermons on mercy. When? Jaime folded arms. Where will bread come from? The Tyrol caravans turned back at the Roserad roadblock. A shadow flickered in the sparrow's eyes. Lady Olenna withdraws her bounty to starve us into submission. Yet grain still lies in city granaries. We ask the crown to open them. Tommen's brows knit. I will. He glanced at Jaime, then the sparrow. But half rations only. We must last through spring. Mains. Prudent. The sparrow's gaze warmed with approval. Then next, lords and small folk alike should collect at the sept to witness public confessions. Those who wrong the gods may step forward freely under your royal aegis. Jaime felt his jaw tighten. Public confessions often turned to public executions. What of those who refuse? The sparrow smiled. Refusal is a confession in silence. Yet we will not force lips, only reveal hearts. Tommen nodded slowly. I'll address the crowd myself. The sparrow laid a hand over Tommen's, weathered fingers trembling. Your courage is balm to the realm. Beyond the city, the Queen of Thorns waged her own war. Lady Olenna's warhorses clopped through orchards heavy with early peaches, stopping at Bitterbridge before crossing the Mander. In the castle's high solar, Rendell Tarley stood before her, helm tucked under one arm. Famine weaponizes the masses, he said. Yet you ask me to tighten that noose. Olenna lifted a single white eyebrow. A noose around the sparrow's neck, not the small folks. Tarley's lips thinned. They will not see the difference. They shall when Sweetbread returns the moment the sparrow kneels. She tapped her cane. Will you command, Lord Rendell? He looked to Loras, still gaunt but girded in chainmail. Is your sword ready, lad? Loras straightened, scars livid across his cheek. My sword thirsts for justice. Tarley nodded. Then the Reach marches. But if your mother's girl dies because we starved her city, your grandmother's blood is on our hands. Olenna's eyes glittered. Consequences of war weigh heavy, yet so does inaction. Tarley bowed stiffly. 2 weeks. We mustered 10,000 heavy infantry. 4,000 horse. We seize the Roseruad choke. No grain enters the capital without Tyrell banners. Ensue. Loras raised fist to heart. Olenna offered a tight smile, then sat heavily. The peach harvest perfume wafted through open windows. It smelled cloyingly sweet, almost mocking. Mark me, she muttered once Tarly had stepped out. The sparrow will twist famine into martyrdom. We must add spice to the pot. Proof of his hypocrisy. Loras frowned. How? Gold cloaks whisper for coin. Find me rumors of the sparrow's private indulgences. Wine, perhaps, or the flesh he publicly scorns. People reverence saints until they discover saints bleed wine red like common sinners. Then Nemtamarol. Loras bowed and strode away. Olenna reached into a pouch at her waist, produced a cut rose of gold with inlaid rubies. She turned it, petals glinting. Every flower has its thorn. She closed her fist around the ornament until edges cut palm, drawing a single bead of blood. In Dorne's capital at Sunspear, the spear tower's balconies blazed with midday heat. Illyria Sand paced barefoot across mosaic tiles, wind whipping her dark hair. Beside her, Prince Trystane watched gulls swoop over the summer sea. Your father would never have tolerated this sparrow, Illyria snapped. A pox on his piety. Trystane shrugged. The Martells have buried enough children on Lannister account. Let them devour themselves. She spun on him. Tommen is innocent. Innocence didn't spare Princess Myrcella, he answered, sadness softening his tone. Illyria softened. She remembered the girl's laughter echoing across the water gardens. The promise of peace dashed by Viper's fang. Regret twisted her heart. I struck at a mother through her child. Now the mother strikes at the world. Poison begets poison. Trystane laid a hand over hers. Vengeance cannot be our only legacy. Dorne must decide whether to join this game or watch from sand dunes. Illyria gazed northward. Cersei's fury, the Faith's zeal, the Reach's hunger. We could tip the scale toward chaos or temper it. She closed her eyes, inhaling salt air. Send ravens. Offer grain and ships, not swords. If we broker truce, Dorne gains leverage without bloodshed. Memsiar. House Martell is peacemaker? Trystane smiled. A new dawn indeed. While ravens winged across the continent, Varys journeyed not by sky but by whisper. Hidden tunnels beneath Visenya's hill carried him into the labyrinth once used by Eris's pyromancers. He listened to gurgling wildfire vats, felt heat shimmer through damp air. Emiros the journeyman knelt by a copper pipe, muttering Valyrian words to test viscosity. You court catastrophe, Varys observed from shadows. Emiros froze, hands slick with green residue. Who speaks? A spider with a conscience. Varys stepped forward, candle casting lambent light on shaven brow. If this river bursts, half the capital drowns in jade fire. Emiros wiped hands on apron. The alchemists serve the realm. Wildfire is a deterrent. If the Faith or Tyrells storm the walls, dragon flame greets them. Varys tilted his head. Have you asked the realm's permission? Emiros laughed. Power requires no permission. I used to believe that too. Varys' eyes saddened. Yet power without purpose is a sword swung in darkness. Tell me, what is your purpose? Emiros hesitated. To defend the city. From whom? A barefoot priest? A starving grandmother? A mourning mother? Varys rested hand on a warm pipe. Water roars in sewers beneath these halls. One cracked joint and molten emerald floods tunnels, erupts through streets, devours man and child alike. All for defense. Emiros' jaw clenched. I follow orders. Orders are easy. Varys extinguished his candle, plunging them into gloom lit only by wildfire's sinister glow. Wisdom is hard. Ask yourself whether the order you follow serves more than one man's fear. Did he? Done. With that, he vanished down a side passage, silk slippers silent on stone. Emiros stared after him, unsettled. From some distant corner, water dripped in slow echo. In the Godswood courtyard, Marguerite Tyrell swept fallen leaves into neat piles. Her hair, shorn to fuzz, prickled under a linen coif. Silent sisters glided around her, like shadows cut from stone. She spoke no words. Her vow required none, but she listened. Sparrows often sought silent sisters for solace, speaking secrets into still air. Brother Joffrey, an unkempt youth named long before the late king, approached with tear-stained cheeks. "Sister," he whispered, holding wilted daisies, "my mother took ill. Can you pray she finds rest?" Marguerite nodded, accepting the flowers. Joffrey's shoulders eased at her compassion. When he left, she tucked the daisies into her sleeve and pressed a palm against rough bark of an elm. Secrets, she had learned, were currency. By listening, she mapped alliances within the faith. Reynard's militant hawks, Mole's zealous inquisitors, but also softer souls like Joffrey who doubted cruelty. She could yet guide hearts, without voice, but with presence. At dusk, Sister Marisol led her to the sept kitchens. Cauldrons steamed, onions sizzling in tallow. Marguerite stirred broth, slipping half an onion into her sleeve. Food scarce, but information scarcer. She bartered onions for whispers with novices who missed their mother's cooking. One traded rumor. A secret letter from Kevan Lannister to the Sparrow proposing joint regency. Tommen under faith guidance. Cersei exiled. Another spoke of wildfire discovery, quickly sealed and forgotten. Marguerite's mind wove the threats. Cersei's desperation. Kevan's ambition. Wildfire's ill omen. Later she knelt in her cell, candle stub flickering. She drew onion slices and daisies, set them before a modest wooden mother icon. Offerings once grand, she thought. Now, tokens. Yet in humility, she sensed strength growing like spring grass through stone. On the third night after the peace pledge, curfew bells tolled, streets emptied. But in a narrow alley near Cobbler Square, 3 figures lingered. A hooded woman, a thin boy, and a man with a scribe's ink-stained fingers. They whispered beneath a balcony where tattered banners of House Hollard still hung from rebellions long past. The hooded woman lowered her cowl. Sansa Stark, traveling under the name Elaine Stone. Her red hair, dulled by soot, fell across a plain cloak. "Littlefinger will arrive by week's end," she murmured. "He means to court the faith with promises of grain." The scribe, Carlton Childie, nodded. "And to steal Tommen as ward. A boy king in the Eyrie lends him leverage." The thin boy, spy for Varys, bit his lip. "Can you stop him?" "Not alone," Sansa said. "But chaos here distracts Cersei's eyes. I can slip into the Red Keep, find the boy, warn him." A high whistle cut through the night. They scattered into alcoves as gold cloaks marched past. When the patrol rounded a corner, Sansa emerged, breath hitching. "I fled Joffrey's cruelty once. I shall not abandon another child to a coronet of thorns." Carlton bowed. "The spider thanks you." She lifted the hood. "I do this for the North." She disappeared into shadows, steps light as a snowflake. Back at the Red Keep, Jaime found Cersei in the library of the Tower of the Hand, parchments strewn across an oak table. Candlelight danced on her features, casting hollow shadows beneath her eyes. "You look for ghosts," he said softly. "Ghosts govern this city better than we do." She lifted a scroll. Aegon the Conqueror's decree on septon tithes. "Faith once bowed to dragonfire. Now we have no dragons." He closed the distance, resting real hand on her shoulder. "We have a son who may yet rule with compassion." Her laughter scraped. "Compassion paints a target on his breast. The sparrow holds the bowstring." "Men," Jaime sighed. "Violence will only tighten the knot. Then I shall cut the knot." She thrust a document into his chest. "Kevan negotiates with the faith. He sees Tommen as pawn. I will not permit it." "You wrote him?" "Of course." She paced, silk slippers whispering. "But ravens fly slow. We need a nearer blade." He studied her, remembering the crypt's moment when pride chained her. "What of peace?" Her gaze hardened. "Peace is a lullaby for fools. I would rather reign in war than kneel in peace." Jaime swallowed, a taste of wildfire in his mouth. Then perhaps you will die in both. But he said only, I must guard the king. She reached to stroke his golden prosthetic, voice softening to a hiss. Guard him? Or guard the sparrow shepherding him? I guard the realm, then guard it from martyrdom. She squeezed until metal creaked. Stand with me. He drew back, eyes glistening. I cannot kill faith. Then step aside while I do. They parted without another word. Cersei watched him leave, shoulders stiff, then bent over scrolls. Dawn would come, and with it, the Council of Absolution. The High Sparrows promised to render verdict on her soul. She gripped her quill so hard it snapped, ink spattering pages. They will not judge me, she vowed. I will judge them. Morning dew glimmered like a million glass needles on roof tiles as the day of festival arrived. Banners of the Seven fluttered beside, stripped Lannister pennants. Market Square filled with long trestles draped in brown cloth, where loaves of barley bread stacked in neat rows. Tommen, clad still in novice beige, but with a stag and lion brooch, stood before the crowd, voice quavering yet clear. May the Mother's mercy feed every mouth. Take what you need, share with your neighbor, and know your king labors beside you. Behind him, Jaime, Cersei, and the High Sparrow watched. Cersei's face was a mask. She bore a circlet of silver to mark her station, but nothing else of queenly finery. The Sparrow carried no staff, only a parchment scroll of names, those pledging confessions. As bread lines advanced, Tommen joined the servers. He ladled stew, thin but spiced, and laughed when urchins jostled him playfully. For a heartbeat, the city felt united. Faith novices sang hymns, small folk clapped. Red cloaks and warriors' sons monitored together. Yet beneath veneer lay tinder. At midday, a commotion erupted by the granary wagons. A Tyrell shield upon a wagon side had been daubed in tar with the words Blood Rose. Zealots accused merchants of hoarding. Merchants swore it was insignia of past aid. Shouts rose. A warrior's son raised cudgel. A Tyrell outrider drew dagger. Jaime pushed through crowd, golden hand raised. Enough, he bellowed. But tension snapped. Cudgel cracked skull, dagger plunged. Blood darkened straw. Screams split the air. In an instant, the festival became frenzy. Small folk scattered, overturning tables. Horns sounded from sept stairs. Poor fellows surged. Jaime hauled the wounded Tyrell aside, but zealots pressed. On the stage, Tommen flinched as bread baskets toppled. Cersei seized his arm, dragging him toward a litter. To the keep, she commanded. He resisted. I must calm them. You will die, she snarled. Listen to your mother. The Sparrow raised arms, voice thunderous. Brothers, sisters, still your wrath. But zealot rage drowned him. Somewhere a torch fell, igniting spilled olive oil. Flames licked tablecloths. Panic erupted. Tommen wrenched free from Cersei and leapt atop an overturned barrel. Stop! His cry cracked. This feast is for all. No blade, no blow. An apple whizzed past, striking his shoulder. He staggered. Arrows hissed, loosed by unknown hands. One grazed his ear. Jaime roared, shoving through throng, but the crush carried him sideways. Cersei screamed Tommen's name. The Sparrow shielded the boy with his body. Inside, he commanded Reynard, who barreled forward, sweeping Tommen into arms. They retreated toward sept steps. Jaime regained footing, just in time to see Cersei grab a fallen sword. Wild fury burned in her gaze. She sliced at a zealous archer, crimson blooming on rough-spun chest. In that instant, Jaime recognized murder in her rhythm. She pivoted to strike again, but her foot slipped on blood. The sword jerked. An arrow, perhaps meant for someone else, tore through her sleeve. She barely felt it. She lunged at a warrior's son, blade flashing. Screams became one roar. Faith banners swirled. Lannister red cloaks closed in. Soot clouded sky. Bells clanged, first one, then seven, drowning cries. Wildfire sleeps deep, but fear cracks stone. Underground, Tremors rattled an aging pipe near Emiros' vats. A weld, weakened by heat, sheared with a sharp ping. Green ooze dripped onto a puddle of lantern oil. Emiros, upwind delivering reagents, heard nothing, until sudden sizzle blossomed into a tongue of emerald flame. He spun, horror widening eyes. The flame kissed a second pipe, melting seam. A jet of wildfire spurted, roaring dragon-like. Emiros fled through tunnels, ashes swirling. Above, tremor rippled under Festival Square. Cobblestones bucked. Jaime stumbled as dust showered from a colonnade. People shrieked, believing an earthquake. The sparrow paused mid-step, gaze turning inward as though sensing hell's awakening. Bersay, sword dripping, felt vibration under boots and smiled a wolf's smile. Let it burn, she thought, then blinked as Tommen's terrified face flashed in memory. Smile faltered, replacing thrill with dread. Wildfire surged sideways through cracks, seeking air. It followed sewer channels, exhaling green mist near the shore. Rats fled squealing. An old drunk by the mud gate swore the river water glowed demon-bright for heartbeat before surface closed again. In the tunnels, Emiros reached a brass valve, turning with blistered hands to divert flow into holding sump. Valves groaned, pipes rattled. He hummed old pyromancer rhyme to steady breath. The wildfire slowed, but pressure mounted elsewhere. He had bought minutes, not salvation. Deep in the sept crypts, Marguerite Tyrell and Sister Marisol knelt in candlelit chapel reciting psalms. Thunder overhead shook dust from stone angels. Marguerite rose, listening darkly. Clamor of riot seeped down, and something else, a distant roar, unnatural. Marisol made to extinguish candles. Marguerite caught her wrist, shook head, pointed upward. With silent agreement, they hurried corridors, skirts swishing. They reached a small postern that opened onto a stairwell beneath the sept's grand plaza. Through narrow slats, Marguerite saw fire flicker in square, smoke swirling. Above, the sparrow guided Tommen up steps. Zealot shields met thrown stones. Reynard called for order, voice ragged. Marguerite's breath caught seeing Tommen's torn robe, blood on his cheek. Without thinking, she darted from cover. Marisol hissed warning, but she slipped through a servant gate into daylight chaos. Her silent sister's veil fluttered. She ripped it free, exposing shorn hair that startled all who saw. She pushed between zealots and townsfolk, reached Tommen's side. He blinked. "Lady Ma, sister." She placed hands on his shoulders, meeting his panicked eyes. No words needed, calm. She raised one palm to crowd, other still on Tommen. Slowly she knelt, pressing forehead to stone. Act of submission both faith and small folk revered. Her bowed silhouette amid smoke and flame drew gazes. Shouts quieted, replaced by ragged breaths. Following her lead, some zealots knelt, then townsfolk. A ripple of kneeling passed outward, tension broken by humility. Thera watched, awe softening features. Tommen knelt too, tears carving soot tracks. Bersay, sword slack in hand, stared at Marguerite, girl who had rivaled her for love of people, now silencing wrath with silent surrender. A crack in Cersei's hatred widened. Jaime sheathed sword, kneeling. The square stilled save for distant crackle of fire. Marguerite rose, taking Tommen's hand. Together, they descended the steps and walked into crowd. She guided him to each wounded soul, touching brow with cloth, offering silent prayer. Her vow forbade speech, but compassion spoke louder. Tommen copied her gestures. Mothers wept, seeing king and queen side by side, stripped of crown and rose yet radiant in mercy. In that hush, bells ceased. A breeze cleared smoke, carrying faint hiss of receding flame. Below, Emiros collapsed against a wall, lungs searing. He'd rerouted pressure to an old cistern flooded decades prior. Wildfire gurgled harmless beneath brackish water, if water held. But welds and pipes remained wounded. He scraped soot from face. Varys' words echoed, "Ask whether the order you follow serves more than one man's fear." He staggered toward ladder leading to a forgotten wine cellar. There he found Varys waiting, shadowed by a pair of hooded figures. "Is it done?" Spider asked. For now, Emeros rasped. But pipes corrode. One quake, one spark. Varys nodded. Then we must purge them. Will you help? No one. Emeros sank to knees, exhaustion trembling limbs. I serve the realm. Good. Varys beckoned the hooded figures. They stepped forward, unveiling silver masks of House Targaryen's loyalists, remnants of Rhaegar's followers. Emeros' pulse quickened. Varys spoke softly. A dragon may return one day. Until then, we keep the realm from burning itself to ash. At dusk, the festival ended with more smoldering benches than song, but bloodshed had ceased. Tommen held council in the Red Keep Shadow Gallery, an unused gallery of statues where echo muffled. Jaime, Cersei the High Sparrow, Brother Reynard and Margaery attended. Candles flickered amber. Tommen's voice wavered but steadied. We cannot repeat this day. Granaries open tomorrow under joint guard of gold cloaks and warriors' sons. Bread lines will be formed by neighborhoods, each group attended by a silent sister. No weapons allowed within 50 paces. Reynard bristled. Disarming faithful. Disarming all, Tommen corrected. Gaze firm. Including gold cloaks. The sparrow nodded. Balanced scales bear just weight. Cersei folded arms. And what of Tyrell treachery? Margaery bowed her head. Jaime interjected. The tar graffiti came from drunk zealots, not Lady Olenna's men. Reynard muttered but subsided. Tommen continued. I will ride to Bitterbridge within the fortnight, meet my grandmother-in-law, and plead for grain. Cersei's eyes widened. Travel to the Reach? Hostile lands. The king must ease famine. Tommen looked to Margaery. She inclined head in support. Cersei's protest died. The sparrow added, I shall accompany his grace, to show our unity. Cersei's jaw clenched, but words caught. Jaime nodded reluctantly. I will secure the route. Tommen exhaled, feeling weight heavy yet movable. Then we adjourn. Mother, will you walk with me? Cersei hesitated, then fell in step. They moved through dim corridor. Candles cast twin shadows. Boy and woman, each scarred by faith. Cersei broke silence. You risk much for bread. For lives, he corrected softly. You taught me a king protects his people. She swallowed bitterness. I taught you, a king keeps his crown. I lost mine and gained a realm. He smiled sadly. Help me keep it, mother. They paused before chamber door. Cersei brushed a stray curl from his brow. For heartbeat, tenderness eclipsed fury. Sleep, she whispered. Tomorrow's dawn may bring sharper knives. That night, Jaime stood on rampart overlooking the black water. Wind carried scent of soot and brine. Footsteps approached. High Sparrow clad in gray, hood drawn. Lord Commander, he greeted. Your Grace, Jaime replied, irony unvoiced. They leaned against parapet. Below, moonlight rippled on water where wildfire glowed had flickered earlier. The sparrow sighed. Today mercy won by a girl's silence. Jaime nodded. Yet fury smolders. The mother's garden requires both rain and pruning shears. The sparrow looked toward the sept silhouette of 7 spires dark against stars. Cersei Lannister's soul warps like iron to flame. She seeks revenge to fill the hollowness left by grief. Jaime traced seam of golden hand. She is still mother to the realm's king. And you still love her. Silence hung. The sparrow continued. Love blinds. Faith blinds. Only humility sees clearly. When next riot roars, remember the girl who knelt. Jaime turned to him. She knelt for Tommen. For all of us. The sparrow answered, then departed into night. Jaime stared at distant torches flickering along city walls. Somewhere beneath, pipes groaned under strain. Somewhere ahead, roads stretched toward Bitterbridge, toward Tyrell spears, toward destiny unknown. In Bitterbridge's Rose Hall, Olenna Tyrell sipped scarlet wine, ignoring maps spread before Randall Tarley. Loras burst in, breathless. Grandmother, news. Riot at King's Landing. Margaery intervened. Save the boy king. Faith praises her. Olenna's goblet paused. My granddaughter wields silence as blade. Clever thorn. She set wine down. Tell the host, we march, but not to starve. We bear grain, at a price. Tarly glanced up. To name, a vow from Tommen. Marriage kept, rose blazoned beside stag, and the sparrow must step aside in governance, leaving Tyrell Lannister regency. Tarly frowned. Do you truly think he will? Olenna smirked. If he refuses, we starve them. If he accepts, we feed them. Either way, the faith's halo tarnishes. War of bread, my dear Randall. She patted his mailed forearm. And I've always liked baking. Loras smiled grimly. Our wagons roll at dawn. As dawn winked pale above the city, Sansa Stark slipped through a servant postern in the Red Keep. She carried basket of linen patched with Winterfell direwolf sewn in underside. Olenna's secret gift to remind her of home. She crept into corridor leading to novice's dormitory. There, Tommen knelt in prayer at a window nook. Sunlight gilding blonde hair. She inhaled, stepped forward. Your Grace. He turned, startled but recognizing her from Rioted's haze. You're the silent sister who saved me. She shook head, pulling hood free. I'm Sansa Stark. His eyes widened. Sister of Robb, father said. She raised hand. Many tales, few true. She knelt. I came to warn you. Lord Petyr Baelish plans to whisk you to the Eyrie, use you as pawn. Tommen swallowed. He was my Lord Paramount once, and a cunning spider. She glanced around. Trust no whisper promising safety away from here. Only your own courage and those you know loyal, Sir Jaime, Lady Margaery. Perhaps Sir Brienne of Tarth if you can summon her. Tommen drew breath. Why help me? Because I once sought safety and found a cage. Pain flickered in her gaze. I will not see another child caged. Footsteps sounded. She pressed a small parchment into his palm. An ink sketch of direwolf and stag, entwined. Remember Northmen keep faith with those who show honor. Then she vanished down corridor before guards arrived. Tommen unfolded sketch, fingers trembling. A direwolf snout rested on stag's antlers, symbols of house, Stark and Baratheon interlocked. Hope, perhaps, that ancient enmity could shift to alliance. From the east over narrow sea, a white raven winged across waves toward Dragonstone. On its leg, a message from Varys to an exiled queen, words short and keen as Valyrian steel. The faith burns green beneath its robes. Westeros begs for mother's mercy. Come with fire, and chain your fury to a wise heart, lest ashes be all that remain. Somewhere on the deck of a weather-beaten cog, Daenerys Stormborn lifted eyes toward western horizon. Dragons circled overhead, wings beating sunrise into blossoming winds. She unfurled the scroll, lips curving with mingled grief and resolve. Viserion, she whispered to the pale beast gliding near. The realm of my ancestors bleeds. We will heal it, or rule its ruin. The dragon screamed, a cry that carried on salt wind across half a world, echoing faintly even to the cliffs of King's Landing where crows stirred uneasily. And so the game deepened. A boy king balancing mercy and authority. A vengeful mother weaving plots in ink and wildfire. A barefoot priest shepherding a flock grown restless. A rose with hidden thorns marching grain and spears. A northern maiden spinning quiet rebellion. A spider stitching webs through tunnels of flame. And far off, a dragon queen answering a realm's distant. The seven kingdoms stood upon a precipice. Peace a fragile glass bridge above a chasm of wrath. On the hill of Baelor that evening, candles flickered in sevenfold candelabras. Margaery knelt before the mother statue. Silent prayer, trembling on parted lips. Behind her, Tommen approached, placing the direwolf stag sketch upon the altar. Hope, he murmured. She rose, touching his cheek with fingertips cold from stone. Their eyes met, sharing a wordless pact. Outside, bells tolled compline, sending ravens winging from spires. Twilight painted the streets violet, cloaking wounds of the day. In the tunnels below, Emeros and Varys worked by lantern, draining wildfire vats, sealing fissures. Each bucket of emerald death buried away felt like a heartbeat saved. Yet miles of pipe remained. Above, Cersei stood at her window, letter from Kevin unread in hand. She watched the Sept's lanterns glow like a constellation. Her reflection stared back from glass, eyes hollow. She whispered an old nursery rhyme Tywin once recited about lion cubs and shadows. Then she tore the letter, fragments dancing on wind that carried them toward the black water, where they floated like dying fireflies upon dark water. Night deepened, and each soul in King's Landing dreamed of bread or crowns, of dragons or thorns, of mercy or vengeance. In dreams, the city smoldered emerald and gold, and bells tolled an unending knell that promised either deliverance or doom. And still, somewhere beneath cobblestones, a single drip of wildfire hissed into darkness, waiting for the day it would find air again.